Good afternoon, student. Welcome in the Indian economy class of AVVM Digital Classroom. So, in the previous lecture, we have seen the India as a mixed economy. We have understand the concept, the India as a mixed economy. Today, we are going to learn the distortion in the planning process. So, the experiment of mixed economy in India has been carried out carried on the over 6 decades or more. 6 decades or more. Both central and state government in India set up several public sector enterprises in many lines of production, trade, and finance. In some cases, successful private sector units were nationalized, that is, insurance companies and banks by the central government and road transport system by the state government. Often, sick private units were taken over by the government. That is, for example, we say textile mills and engineering units. Many states set up public sector enterprises just to accommodate party legislator as chairman to provide them with ministerial status and prerequisites. In general, a good number of public sector enterprises in India have been running inefficiently, involving huge losses to the government and ultimately to the taxpayers. As in the case of Israel, Soviet Russia, and East European communist countries, the public sector enterprises wasted precious resources and therefore came in for sharp criticism for the general public. Further, the private sector has been constantly trying to evade and in many ways distort the planning process. The private sector has corrupted the bureaucracy and the politician in power. Consequently, relaxation in plan priorities were permitted. The Sabimal Dutt Committee revealed that the government has permitted the private sector to set up the industrial unit in area reserved for the public sector. Similarly, while imports were to be permitted in areas of sophisticated technology, they were permitted in areas of low priority under the pretext of other or the other. The profit motive and the exquisite spirit of the private sector on the one side and the inefficiency of the public sector on the other have resulted in severe distortion or the serious distortion in the planning process. The upshot of the analysis, we say that uh, whether investment is made in the public sector or the private sector, the major beneficiaries of the growth have been the big business houses, the big traders, and the landlords, and the relatively better off section of the society. These are the inherent contradiction of the mixed economy. After the adoption of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, we say LPG policy or the LPG model of planning of LPG model of development. Okay, see, several decisions were taken which revert the earlier policies. First, private sector has been permitted in banking and insurance. Foreign banks also find a place in the banking system. These banks work on the principle of profit motive and would not pursue social and economic policies as laid down by state from time to time. The share of the private sector in insurance is also growing. Second, we say that the emphasis in the development policies has shifted in pushing the rate of GDP growth. But the I have to say that, but the percolation of the benefits of growth down to help weaker section has been regulate. Uh, what I have to say, actually, the emphasis in development policies has shifted in pushing the rate of GDP growth, but the percolation of the benefit of growth down to help people sections has been uh, neglected to take a back seat. This explains the hard reality that with GDP growth reaching a level of over at that time over 7% during the that decade, the rate of poverty reduction has slowed down. Third, we can say that the employment objective in treated as a corollary of the growth objective. However, as fact stare us in the face, increase in employment has taken place only in the unorganized sector, but the fast growing corporate sector has shown near zero growth of employment. The fourth, if we say that the objective of reducing inequalities is conspicuous by its absence in the growth process. Inequalities between rural and urban sectors have widened. Similarly, the inequalities between the better off section and the poor have become much wider. The next, if we say, instead of the public sector, the private sector has become the engine of the growth. But the experience of its working shows that the private sector is interested in areas of high profit. Consequently, public sector has to undertake investment in fiscal, investment in physical and social infrastructure. The only redeeming feature is the existence of uh, parliamentary democracy, institution of democracy, especially at the time of election, force the political parties to talk about Aam Aadmi, the common man, and also initiate measures to help the weaker section of the society. This has resulted to some trickle down. So, the basic objective, if we talk about the development strategy in India, so development strategy from the first, second models, if we talk about, so we are going to learn the development strategy in India. So, the basic objective of our 5-year plan were development along socialist line to secure rapid economic rapid economic growth and expansion of employment, reduction of disparities in Indian income and wealth, prevention of the concentration of economic power, and creation of value of attitude uh, of a free and equal society. In order to achieve these objectives, the planners formulated a strategy of planned economic development. So, what is the strategy of the planned economic development, we are going to discuss the Mahalanobis model of growth. It was only with the second plan that there was a clear enunciations of a strategy of development by Indian planners. Professor P.C. Mahalanobis, who was the real architect of the second plan, was responsible for introducing a clear strategy of development based on the Russian experience. This strategy emphasized investment in heavy industry to achieve industrialization, which was assumed to be the basic condition for rapid economic development. For Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, the development of heavy industry was synonymous with the industrialization. He stated, if we are to industrialize, it is of primary importance that we must have the heavy industries with build machines. Again, there are some who argue that we must not go in for heavy industry, but for lighter ones. Of course, we have to have light industries also, but it is not possible to industrialize the nation rapidly without concentrating on the basic industries which produce industrial machines which are utilized in industrial development. Nehru was thus extremely forthright in pointing out that industrialization meant development of heavy industries. The plan frame of the second plan stated this in unequivocal terms, and that is, in the long run, the rate of industrialization and the growth of the national economy would depend upon the increasing production of coal, electricity, iron, and steel, heavy machineries, heavy chemicals, and heavy industries generally, which would increase in the capacity for capital formation. One important aim is to make India independent as quickly as possible of foreign imports of producer goods so that the accumulation of capital would not be hampered by difficulties in securing supplies of essential producers goods from other countries. The heavy industries must therefore be expanded with all possible speed. Thus, the core of the strategy adopted by Indian planners for the second plan and with minor modification for the subsequent three plans, that is up to the fifth plan, was rapid industrialization through lumpy investment on heavy, basic, and machine building industries. So the need for rapid industrialization there. So the planners justified their strategy of rapid economic development through rapid industrialization. First, if we say that at the time of independence, India was essentially agrarian. Though the country with its vast natural and human resources was ideally suited for the industries, the planners felt that diversification of the use of resources would be in the interest of the country from the point of view of production, employment, and defense. Resources should therefore be applied more towards the development of industries rather than to agriculture. Second, Indian agriculture was already suffering from heavy population pressure on land and productivity of labor. On land was quite low. It was even thought that marginal productivity of labor on land might be zero and even be negative. One method of reducing this pressure of population on land and to raise agriculture productivity was to reduce the percentage of people living on land and to shift the surplus population to industries. The setting up and expansion of the industrial sector was thus a necessary condition for raising the national product in general and for agriculture development in particular. Third, if we say that rapid industrialization was an essential condition for the development of not only agriculture but also for all other sectors in the country. For instance, with the expansion of industries and the shifting of labor from rural to urban area, the demand for food grains and agricultural raw materials such as cotton, jute, oilseeds, etc., would increase at the same time. Increased production and supply of fertilizer, pesticides, agriculture machineries, etc., would help in the expansion of agriculture production with rapid industrialization and with rapid expansion of markets. There would be expansion in trade and commerce, in transportation, in banking and finance, etc. Fourth, productivity of labor is such higher in manufacturing than in agriculture. The growth rates are much higher in industry than in agriculture. Rapid increase in national and per capita income would be possible only through rapid industrialization. The next point, if I say, the income elasticity of demand for industrial goods was much higher and export opportunities for manufactured goods were also high. So it was for all these reasons that industrialization was emphasized by Indian planners. So these were the reason of uh, the Indian planner gave for the rapid industrialization. So these were the five reasons. Now, heavy industries versus, if I say light industries, they give more importance to the heavy industry. So, an important aspect of the investment strategy formulated by Professor Mal Nobbins was the emphasis on heavy industry producing basic machines and basic metals. In other words, an increasing proportion of investment should be on machine building industries. The Planning Commission supported this strategy for two other reasons. These reasons are: first, investment in the heavy industry helps the Indian economy to build up a larger volume of capital stock and at a faster rate. Second, heavy industries helps to lay the foundation for a strong and self-reliant economy, partly through rapid expansion of all the sectors of the economy and partly by eliminating the dependence of the country on imports of essential machineries and equipments. So the Planning Commission rejected the alternative strategy of emphasizing light industries producing consumption goods. True, this alternative approach would have the advantage of helping the Indian economy to produce a larger volume of consumption goods, and this would have helped the people to have a higher standard of living in the short period and also combat inflationary pressure in the country. But this could be achieved by neglecting the accumulation of capital stock in the country. The Planning Commission rejected the short period availability of the consumption goods in favor of production of capital goods, which in fact would help after a certain critical stage to produce a large volume of consumption goods. The capital goods approach, based on the Russian experience, expected people to sacrifice in the short period in favor of a high level of living in the long period. Besides, this approach would enable the country to have a large volume of the capital goods in the short period and a large volume of both capital and consumption good in the long period. So this is the Mahalanobis model of growth, in which the high the planners have given the reasons for the industrial. They gave the more emphasized on the industrial development, and according to them, industrialization and development both are complementary to each other. But for the development, they give more emphasis on the heavy industry. So importance of heavy industry strategy, that how the heavy industry strategy were accepted in the planning period, that we will learn in the next lecture, in which we will learn that how the small scale industry supply of consumer goods, uh, the place of agriculture, uh, how the industrialization take place, development strategies, the role of private sector, the role of public sector, role of foreign trade and foreign aid. So that we will learn the in the implication of the heavy industry strategy point. So in the next lecture, we will learn this topic, as well as development strategy and employment objective, and strategy to achieve social objective, and use of fiscal policy. And at the end, we will learn the operation of the heavy industrial development strategies. Models were there. I will only introduce the different models, and then we will jump on the Niti Aayog. Then we will jump on the Niti Aayog. So in the next lecture, we'll only talk about the planning commission, and then I'll take the topic that Niti Aayog. So, whatever I have taught up to now, please do revise it. The chapters which were completed by me. I'll give you the name of the chapters and the name of the books and syllabus, as well as syllabus were discussed in the first lecture, and the name of the book were also discussed and given to you. The list is given to you. So many books were there, and the list is given to you. So I will talk about the assignment syllabus in the next lecture, as well as the material about the Indian economy in the next lecture. So have a good day.